Welcome everybody. Gonna get started. Hopefully finish the gamers night out today. Um, so I have previously released a Switch Lite and regular OLED version of my gamers night out wallet. That released 2 years ago in September of 2023. Now since we have the new Switch system out, I'm going to be releasing a new version of the pattern that's specifically for the Switch 2 with new pattern pieces and cut lists for the Switch 2. It is going to be releasing on November 28th, Black Friday, and all of my patterns, not just the Switch 2, will be 20% off for the weekend through the 1st of December, which is Cyber Monday. So you will have 4 days that you can get any of my patterns for 20% off, including the new version of the Gamers Night Out. So just to show you, this is a completed Gamers Night Out that is for the Switch 1. This is the regular one, not the light. I'm not sure where I've put my light one, mine particular. This is my husband's Switch one, too. Love Pac-Man. So each one of the Gamers Night Out has card slots and a pocket for cash here. And it has 6 card slots. These can be adjusted for game cartridges. Hey, Melody. And I will go over that at another time, how these can be adjusted for game cartridges. And I also have a zipper pocket. And as you can see, I like to put fun fabric on the inside. Now, this one is a very basic. It does not have one of the optional parts. There are 2 optional parts of this pattern, and that is a flap that goes over the card slots so that it will protect your screen from rubbing up against the card slots. I also have the screen protector. It just wraps around your system. And it is different for each of the size Switch or game system. And I have had people ask me if I've done one for like the Xbox or the Steam Decks. I don't have one on hand, so it's a little harder for me to do, but I actually do have the Switch 2 and Switch Lite on hand, so that's one reason I have them. So today we should hopefully finish up, or 90% finish up the Gamers Night Out for the Switch 2. Now, the biggest difference is the pattern, as far as putting it together between the different sizes, is the pattern sizes, the cuts list of the pattern pieces, and everything like that. I can understand that. This is great because they can actually carry their wallet with them without having to carry a different bag. So that's what's great about this. I have my optional wristlet. Now, this is completely optional. I just put it on all mine because, yes, I have the handles on top, but I also have the wristlet. And sometimes you just grab what's easy. I could see that being an issue. All right, so the one I've been working on the last couple weeks is this one. As you can see, Pokemon fabric. Last week we put the handles on, and we finished up our zipper pocket on the inside. And if you can see, I do put the pretty fabric on the inside. I like being able to actually see in there. Now, I have made myself several of these. I have a Mario one that is for my Switch Lite, because I have a Switch Lite and a Switch 2. My husband has a Switch. Now, this will show you the optional card flap. So you want to be able to have something that's not going to rub against the screen and put scratches on it or anything like that. So that was something that came up when I first started this a couple years ago. And so I added this, and so this will actually cover up your card flaps, your cards, so that it'll protect your screen. And you just put your screen up against the cards. So we have our optional card flap, so you still have your place for your money and your cards. And this has enough for 6 cards. Like I said, it can be adjusted for game cartridges. This particularly is mine, so I did not want to have that myself because me personally, I put them in the zipper pocket. But that's what I do usually. So what we're going to do today is where we're at. Last week, the last thing we did was prep the zipper for the main zipper. So if you can see, we have a nice straight zipper. So the way this is done, is that you pinch up part of the thing, and I pinned it in place and then basted it in place with 1/8 of an inch, which makes it this nice 90-degree angle. And that means your zipper does not come off, which gives us a good stopping point. So on the exterior pieces, it doesn't matter the size it is, whichever size you're making it for. From the straight edge, so you have a curved edge and a straight edge. You mark from the straight edge 5/8 of an inch in. And this is going to be one mark. And then we are going to mark, depending on which one you're doing. Thank you. Depending on which one you're doing is how far back this is. Because you're also going to measure from that end to the same distance on your zipper tape. And while that's an important point, and speaking of which, I need to go ahead and mark my zipper tape. I hadn't done that yet. A lot of this I have pre-marked, but I don't have that marked yet. So I'll go ahead and mark that. Like I said, and depending on which one you make as to what it actually will be, the distance. Because, of course, the bigger system needs more space. But in the pattern, it will tell you which size and the distance you need to measure for each one. All right, so we have now what we also did after we made that end, we took our zipper tabs and sewed those together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then folded down and top stitched. And one way to keep this all as one piece, I actually top stitch and then I basted around the other 3 sides. Completely unzip this. And you're like, well, that's not normally how we do those things. No, it's not. Ooh, excuse me. The weather keeps changing, so my allergies are going a little crazy. All right, so the way this works is that we have our zipper, and I will pin this. So we have the straight edge of our zipper, not our zipper teeth, our straight edge of our zipper. And we are going to use that mark that we've made, and we want the edge of our zipper teeth right up to that mark. And I'm going to pin this. And then I'm going to, that other mark we just made on our zipper tape. So if you see my zipper tape, and I'm going to find that same mark on my exterior. So I will pin it and I will show you what I mean. So I have pinned those 2 marks. And so if you see back here, marks are pinned back here. Or there's my edge of my zipper tape, even with that mark. So we're going to make sure, one thing to make sure, handle is down, out of your way, or on the other side of the zipper tape. We're going to pin this in place. And I'm just going to pin all the way across back to the first mark. Now, if you're wondering, what are those marks? Those are the marks we used to put our handles on earlier. So that's all that is. We're not using them anymore. Now, you could use double-sided tape here. I don't. I usually just pin. The only time I use double-sided tape in this is if I have a vinyl exterior. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our zipper tape and keep pinning around this curve all the way down until we get to the bottom. And my headphone's going to die on y'all just a second. So I'm going to switch headphones real quick on for this. Most of the time. So, all right, so we are going to pin. Now I do use more pins as I go around the curve. And I will show you how it looks when I'm done pinning. Now, after we get this pinned, then we are going to baste it. We're not sewing it down, we're basting it to the exterior with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And that's a big thing because we are done once we add the lining. We are just pinning it all the way down. Now, it's possible your zipper tab will hang down below the exterior. That's fine. Any extra, once we get to that point, can be trimmed away after everything's sewn. But that's why I have it that way. So if some people sew a little heavier handed than others and will have that issue. Okay, so just to show you, so we have that pinned all the way around. And if you notice, I'm going to go ahead and baste this, and then I'm going to do the thing for the other side. So I will be right back. I'm just going to baste this together. I'm going to show you what it looks like from the other side. That way you don't have to switch camera. So basically what this is, we're basting it because we will then go back and sew it with and I can tell my dog has been under, for some reason my dog likes to lay under my sewing machine when I'm gone. I've been gone most of the day, so he has been under there. It's kind of disconcerting when you find your foot pedal not where it's supposed to be. Now, I say you're just basting, but you're not taking out these basting stitches, so I'll tell you the same thing I always do. If I'm basting and I'm not planning on taking it out, I do reverse stitch because I want it to hold in place. But that's a personal preference. If you're basting, you can take out the stitches. But like I said, it's inside the seam allowance, which is 3/8. So we are going to sew, when we add our lining, we will sew that together, add a 3/8 inch seam allowance. So you don't have to do reverse stitching. That's just what I do personally. So right now we are just sewing, and I go slowly around that curve. That's why I use a good number of pins when you add the linings, when it gets to be a little more interesting. And no, I will not add the lining right now. We actually want to sew both exteriors together first because you don't want that extra bulk while you're trying to sew around the curve. So we are going around. And I will keep stitching on around the curve. And I will show you what it looks like. And when we will go ahead and pin. Now I only have one machine on this one. I have my serger on my other table on the other side of the room. So that's not an issue so much with me. So at least I don't have that issue. But yeah, he likes to lay under on the mat that's underneath my sewing machine. So that's part of that problem. So now we have it basted. So if you can see, we've got a good bit of zipper tape left. So this is number 5 zipper tape. Number 3 zipper tape will make it where it's way too close. So you need that number 5 zipper tape. So if you see, it's actually very even. If it had hung down, and I've had it where it's hung down some more than others, I guess when I'm pulling more, then it does that. So what we're going to go ahead and do, before we go over to the other side, we have our zipper tab. Hold on just a second. And we want to do this on the left exterior where the straight line's over here. And I'm just going ahead and do this because we're going to do this before we do our next step, adding the lining on. We have, since I have the optional wristlet, well, you want the D-ring connector that has the wristlet. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure 1.5 inches down from the left exterior, and we leave about 1/2 inch over, and we're going to baste it in place. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. I take my little handy dandy ruler and just take it to my machine and baste it in place. Now I usually do about a, now this is one where I don't necessarily do a reverse stitch. But I will go back and forth over it more than once just to hold it in place. Not as many people joining us tonight, it seems like. Okay, so just to show you how it's basted on there, it's about 1.5 inches from the top. And the reason we do this now before we add the lining is we want to know how far we are from that straight edge before we add our lining. That's the main reason. And you could put it down further. That's about where I prefer it. So we'll just trim our thread away here. So now we're going to go ahead and add our zipper tape to the other one. And the main reason we do this without doing the lining and all that, we want to be able to have the completely free zipper tape. So yet again, I have my markings and I match up the straight edge, not the zipper teeth part, but the straight edge with my 90-degree angle, right up with that 5/8 of an inch mark. And like I said, depending on what size bag you're making is how far away your next mark will be, or the next marked mark will be. So I'm going to go ahead and get that pinned in place. And one other thing I will do, just to make sure it is at the same spot on the bottom, is I will go ahead and pin the bottom of it too. So everything should be about the same location, and that way everything is equal with each other. So now we're going to, but I prefer pinning from the end. And this is so that you will have a stop, and it's 5/8, so you'll have a little bit of an edge. So if you want to see, when we close this up all the way, we have a bit left over. as an opening. So we're not trying to get, because we will sew this together, and so you need to have some leeway between your zipper and your seam. So now I'm going to pin this all the way around. So right now, mostly you've been watching me pin. Thank you. Welcome, Madeline. So we are pinning this all the way around. I said I pin starting with the 90-degree angle of the zipper tape to the next mark, and then I work my way down the curve. I find things just fit better that way. Less likely I have to take them out and repin them. I am making a Gamer's Night Out wallet. This is the size that will hold a Switch 2. I have my previous pattern was made for the Switch Lite and the regular LED switch. So this is for the Switch 2 particular, and I will be releasing the new version of the pattern in next week, a week from tomorrow. But the original is available on my website, which the link is posted in the commentary. So we've pinned all the way across. Now we're going to pin down the side, down our curve. And I just I take this a little bit at a time. Probably pin a little heavier around the curve. And it's being fiddly, which zipper tape likes to be at times. We have going around the curve, pinning that in place. Now, one reason we pin this after that is because I usually start with the end of the zipper tape that has the 90-degree angle when I add it to the first side. And then the second side, because it's easier to sew, I actually sew it from the bottom up. But that's my personal preference. You can sew it either way. I will show you what it looks like pinned. And I will stitch that real quick. Are there any questions so far for anybody? Okay, so we have the second one, and it's pinned. As you can see, that nice little curve. And it goes all the way down. And like I said, I will actually sew it from the bottom up, but I still make sure all my marks match. So we have this mark ends the end of the zipper tape. This little mark is the same as the mark on the zipper tape. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch that real quick, and then we'll go ahead and add our lining. So there's not a lot left. It's adding the lining, and then now most zipper tapes are top stitched. This is not. You can. I have had some of my testers in the past top stitch at the zipper. I don't find it's necessary. So, I mean, if I show you, if you see, it is not top stitched at the zipper tape. You can, but if you notice, it's not the zipper it's getting caught on, it's getting caught on the screen protector. So if I take the screen protector out, because usually that's on the machine, not the thing. If you notice, it unzips, no problem, zips, no problem, back and forth. So that's not an issue. I don't find it having an issue because of how it's curved. it doesn't catch on the fabric unless you've sewn way too close to the zipper teeth, which some people do. And so you have to take that into account. So right now I am just basting the other side of the zipper tape to the second exterior, or the other exterior. And I'm just going around the curve now, which to me is the hardest part to sew, because yet again is a curve and you're trying to make something straight go on a curve. And I'm not cutting notches into it. Some people will cut notches into zipper tape. I don't, because it will cause it to fray. So I don't like to. Some people are like, oh, you can do little 1/8 of an inch snips. I don't like to, because I have been burnt too many times before by zipper tape coming apart. So I don't like to compromise the integrity of my zipper tape. So everybody's different in that regard. Because I have had patterns say, oh, just cut a little snip into your zipper tape and it'll make it lay easier. Might make it lay easier, but a lot of times it'll come out. So this is just a personal preference and it works for me. So I just don't mess with what works. Okay. So just to show, we have a full exterior put together, just the exterior. So if you want to see, make sure your thing zips fine. So if you can see, zips together really well. See my very fussy cut side duck there. Now you're like, oh, that zipper tape's sticking up. We haven't sewn it at our 3/8 seam allowance yet, so that's not an issue. So now we'll unzip it. But see, I always say test it. If it zips pretty good, you're fine. So now we'll keep this unzipped. We'll adjust for the sirens in the background. Apparently something's going on. So we have our lining piece. Well, the big thing is to make sure you have the right lining piece with the right pattern, with the right exterior piece. So right sides together, your curves need to match up. Now we're not pinning on all 4 sides. We're only pinning. No, they were out in my neighborhood, so not sure what's going on. We're going to pin these together, and we're just going to pin basically where we just pinned for the zipper tape. But the difference being that whereas we started at that mark where the zipper tape was, now we're going to start and sew all the way to the edge. Now, big thing, handle gets tucked between them. So instead of moving y'all back and forth, since there's a lot of pinning in this, I just figure I can sew it really quick and then show you what it does, and then go back to pinning again. And then past that, we will talk about a lot of it. And there are parts when I will move it to the machine so you can see a little better. But right now we're just following a line and stitching it down. All right, so we are now, here's where it gets a little difficult. So we have the one exterior piece. This is why it's so important to sew the zipper tape onto the exterior pieces first. So we're going to take our lining, and so it'll kind of look like it's hanging down like that. I'm going to match up all the way around. Just to hold it in place. Now, since you are actually going to sew this at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, you will possibly have to move your zipper pull while you're stitching. So just know that that is a possibility. I don't always. Sometimes I have to, and sometimes I don't. So right now I'm just pinning all the way around. I think I take more time pinning than I do sewing, which happens sometimes. But this has come a long way. The first time I made one of these Gamers Night Out was 5 years ago when I needed something to carry into the hospital when my daughter was undergoing her cancer treatment. So, got to think about that. I just wanted something to be able to carry my Switch while she was undergoing treatment, and have my wallet with me so I could buy food. That's basically what it came down to. So that's where this brainchild came from. And the first one did not have foam. So we are getting this pinned. Hope y'all are doing well tonight. And I'll show you what it looks like once I get it pinned. We're on the last pin. I like to have that last little pin. Wondering where Annette is tonight. Usually she's here. All right, so just to show, this is my one that has the D-ring connector. This is my one that has the pocket, my zipper pocket, and have pinned it all the way down and all the way down. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this and starting at the straight edge, sew it at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Ow, take that if you don't stab yourself with the pin. So I'll switch y'all to the machine. Now remember, you will have that little hump of actually sewing over the zipper tape. Now, one thing I do say to do, and you heard me kind of glance off a pin, so I will make sure my handle is down good. I've got a string caught, random string. And we are just following that zipper tape around. We're getting ready to go around the curve in just a minute. So this is not a very long sew. It's not the most difficult. It does have some challenging parts, especially such as the handles, depending on materials you use, the card slots. Okay, so now I'm going around the corners. So I'm actually going to reach in here slightly, pull down my zipper tape. So just you can see, I'm pushing my zipper tape down out of the way so it is not getting caught in the seam. Making sure my zipper tape is laying nice and flat. Because I don't want any weird kinks in it, because then I have to go take something out, and I don't like doing that too. So we're just going our way around. And then it gets a whole lot easier because you've gone around that curve. Now we'll just keep that other side out of the way. Now here's where it gets a little more difficult because I'm coming up on the zipper pull since this zipper is open all the way. And what you can do is you can zip up a little bit, or if you think you can squeeze by that zipper pull, then go ahead. I think I can, so I will. There are times I don't. Taking my lining fabric, make sure it lays flat. Okay. So we're going to switch back over here for a minute. So we have our one side done. So just to make sure everything's good, I always check both sides before I move on. I got some random thread. Decided to hop in the seam. So just to show you, and you're going to tell me, oh, the lining fabric is really sticking up. Well, it will lay down better once we get both sides attached. I promise. You can take and press it down where it'll stay down a little better. But just to show you, we have one exterior with the lining attached. Now, like I said, it is still open here, but if you want to test it, you can actually see no problem zipping it. This is what I was saying, that you have no problem zipping it whatsoever with the lining fabrics. You have enough clearance. Right now, I'm having an issue because the zipper tape is up on the other side. If you see, it's kind of wrinkling up until I have that lining in the way. Once that lining's in the way, so if you see how well, even without pressing, how well that stays down at the zipper tape, you see, one, I don't find it to be an issue without having top stitching. But that's my personal choice. All right, so what we're going to do is that we're going to leave this turned right side out, and we are going to attach our other lining and pin it. I apologize. So we have our card slots, and we're going to pin this. The same way we would pin the last side. Yeah, we shouldn't have a problem finishing tonight. And then I will probably take a week off next week for Thanksgiving week, since that's the day before Thanksgiving. But then we'll definitely pick up the next week. Now, one reason I keep it right side out here is because I want this out of my way. So I'm going to go ahead and pin on this side as well. Now, for right now, that one is right side out. But it will not stay that way. While we are pinning this and stitching this other side down, it will be right side out. Then we are going to turn everything wrong side out to connect everything. So we will be finished. Like I said, I like this. It's a fun sew. I'm actually going to make one of these for both my brother and sister-in-law for Christmas. My brother is a pretty big Star Wars fan, so I don't know if I'm going to do him a Star Wars or do him a Pokemon, but I'm going to do my sister-in-law, his wife, a Pokemon one. So we're just getting this pinned. Sorry, it's down in my lap. I can't pin holding it up. One of those people, I like to have the pressure behind it. Hope everybody has big plans for the holiday. Spend it with family. You vote stars. There's a huge Star Wars fan, so I may have to. But I've made him other Star Wars things first. I make him a lot of Star Wars things, but I might actually do him Pokemon for something different. We'll see. I haven't figured that out yet. But this one is not my sister-in-law's. This one specifically is for me. Hence the fussy cutting of a lot of water Pokemon and stuff like that, which are my favorite, and having Squirtle Squad. But for I know she's a big last year I made her a Togepi pocketbook. So she liked that a lot. It was different. So just get this pinned. Yeah, he's a huge shirt. I've made him split hoodies, and I've made him Star Wars blanket and stuff like that as well. My sister-in-law is a big Pokemon fan and loves cats and dark fantasy novels. Not really my cup of tea, but it's what she likes. Like the Court of Thorns or something like that. I just don't know enough about it to be able to get anything for that, really. We're getting this last bit pinned, and after this, sewing's a lot easier because you're not going around that curve. So if I sneeze, I apologize, people. And I apologize if it's a loud sneeze. I'm not a quiet sneezer. Okay, so just to show, here is my card slots with the flap. You can see where I have the Velcro down here and where the flap is attached at the top, and the card slots are stitched down. My brother is 37 this year. So you can see here is our completed side, and we were getting ready to sew this one. So I'm going to go take this in the machine and sew this side. So I said I sew one side from the top right where the zipper is, and I sew the other side from the bottom, the second side I'm attaching. No, my mom's getting both my brother and my husband the gingerbread at Legos, or AT depending on who you are, for Christmas. Actually, for my brother, it's for his birthday, because that's next week. His birthday is on Monday. My brother was a turkey baby. Like I said, we just kind of go slow around this curve. Like I said, when I get to the curve, I reach in where I just really pull down the zipper tape, just so I make sure it's not getting weird kinks in it or anything. And I just kind of follow it along. I do pin it pretty heavily, but that doesn't mean things can't get messed up. Oh, I'm a huge Lego fan, so if you've ever seen some of my pictures, I actually have the giant Bowser Lego. So I'm a huge Mario fan, as well as, or should I say, I'm a huge Mario Bad Guy fan. If I could show, and I say that because I have that and Dry Bones sitting right here at my sewing machine. So Definitely say I like the baddies, but my favorite is actually Rosalina, the princess who's from Super Mario Galaxy. If I have to go with the good guys. Otherwise, I like the bad guys. And we're around that curve. I always kind of breathe a sigh of relief when I'm around that curve. It's cool looking. It really is kind of neat. And it comes with a gingerbread Darth Vader, which is even cooler. He's actually dressed up like a gingerbread man, which I think is kind of funny. And my husband's 44 years old, and he knows it's coming, but he's looking forward to it. He's a big Star Wars fan too. Not quite as big as my brother, but still pretty big. So I agree. My 8-year-old, almost 9-year-old little girl loves Legos. She makes up stories and everything else with her Legos constantly. So, the other side. That's actually where the cube pattern came from because I had a Lego Mario stripe to work on and I needed a square. All right, so we're going to turn this right side out. And this is just to test that, make sure everything zips good, that all our around the curves looks good. So when you know you've done your curves well, whoop, sorry. When it's nice and pretty around and you can't really tell a difference that it's going around a curve except that it is curved. At least in my experience. All right, so the big test, can I zip and unzip without issue? And this is without it even. And if you see, I'm not top stitching it. It's not getting caught. I can do this a bunch of times. And even my seams are open and it's zipping, unzipping and zipping, no issue. So now what we need to do is turn them back. Wrong side again. And we're getting to our last part, which is putting the last parts together. And if you're wondering, oh, I love Legos. Just recently built one. All right, so we have our, and what we're going to do is we're going to pin our exteriors to exteriors and our lines. So just makes life simpler. So we are matching up our seams. That's one thing I do. I don't pin all the way down. I make sure my seams match up first. And then I pin the other corner. And then I'll go back and pin in between to hold it in place. I just like to make sure all my Oh, that's lovely. I apologize. I don't know what's happening with the signal if it's doing that. It's not telling me it's reconnecting, so hopefully we'll be able to get through this. So I'm going to pin this all the way across. Hopefully you don't lose me. But if it happens, we'll come back on and finish. But right now, I still have full signal, so we'll hope that that's the case. Okay, we're just pinning all the way across. Well, that's good. At least it's not doing it for very long. Okay, so here's one thing. We have pinned the one straight edge. The rest is all kind of connected. So what we're going to do here, you have, if you see, there's your zipper tab. We are going to match up our seams, but you want to have your zipper tab go towards your lining. And that's so that it will lay flat once we get this sewn. So I'm going to match up that seam real quick and pin in place. So if you can see, my seam is matched up and my zipper. So now that we've got that seam pinned, I'm going to pin the straight edge of our exterior. The remaining straight edge, should I say. Now, like I said, if I'm using vinyl as my exterior, I will use clips instead of pins. You can even use pins and clips instead of pins here because it is a thicker with the foam. Because I do not have the foam out of the seam allowance because you want that protection. Excuse me. Right, so we have our last side to pin, which is just our lining, straight edge, and I will pin, and I will make sure to leave me about a 5-inch hole, 4 to 5-inch hole for turning, so that I can pull this through. And believe me, I have busted seams when I don't leave enough of a hole, or I sit there and I go, I can't get it through. So make sure you leave you enough of a space for turning so that you can actually get your bag turned through that hole. So if you see, that's about the space I leave to turn. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to start stitching at one pin, go all the way around through my exterior, and end up at my other pin. So we're going to basically sew in a circle. So I'm going to turn y'all back to the machine. It doesn't matter which way you start first. It's just how you do it. All right, so what we're going to do, this is at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Yet again, most of this pattern is sewn with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So just heads up. Ow. I'm poking myself with pins here. Not quite far enough. One more stitch. And there's our 3/8 again. And make sure you're not sewing your pocket. And I'm getting my caught, apparently. And just to help with the thickness, I have one seam going one direction. So if you can see, there's one seam and the other one's going this way in the opposite direction, and that will help you flatten your seam slightly. The big thing is make sure your D-ring is not pointed down here because we're going over our D-ring connector. Now I'm actually going to turn, and because it is thicker here with that D-ring connector, but I like to have the reinforcement. If you're going to be carrying a electronic with that wristlet, I like to have a little bit of extra stitching, so I will actually stitch through this like 3 times, basically making this a very strong seam. And the reason I do that instead of reverse stitching and then going back again, sometimes I get skip stitches when I do that. Okay. That's about right. So we're doing it around. And we're getting that around here. Working our way down. We're almost down to the zipper tab. So we're almost all the way around. So if you notice, we're down to the last couple pins. We're doing this last little bit. And the reverse stitch. Okay, so the last part is we're going to box our corners. So we have two straight edge corners. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to trim off the edge. Make sure you don't cut into your seam. So if you can see, I cut right close, but I'm not cutting into my seam. And I'm just trimming the edge off. So you see my little triangles. So I have 4 little triangles that I've just cut off. And what we're going to do is we're going to box our corners. So I actually open my seams. This helps them to lay nice and flat. Then you could press these seams open if you wanted to. I don't usually. So we are opening that seam up, and I'll show you after I get it pulled. And I will actually stick a pin in to make sure my seam is matching on both sides. Okay, so we have the seam opened up, if you can see, and what we're going to do is we're going to sew a 3/8 of an inch seam here. And then we'll do this on the exterior side. This is our lining side. We'll do this on the exterior side as well. So it's not a very big box seam. And this is the same for all the sizes. Because amazingly enough, all switches are the same depth, like they're the same depth of the system. The size of the screens and stuff differs, but okay, so we have our 3/8 of an inch seam. So what we're going to do it, now we're going to trim yet again. And we have our nice straight edge. And we're going to do this to the exterior side as well. So I'm going to take it and we open this here. And like I said, I open my seam. Find that's the easiest way to box a corner. If you've never boxed a corner before, or should I say boxing a corner that is already sewn. So I will actually make sure that goes all the way through. Okay. So if you can see, it's pinned. And I made sure my pin is there. So now I'm going to take this to the machine and sew this at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance as well. Oops, it slipped before I even started sewing. So I'll pull my needle out now. And then we have a needle broke. That's always lovely. At least I got the stitching done, but I will probably stitch over that just to, I don't know what I hit. But I broke a needle. That's always fun, right? So this is why we have our handy dandy screwdriver right here waiting. Isn't that lovely for y'all to hear that thing? But it bent and then broke off the tip. Stayed on the thread, but it broke. So we have our needle. And if anybody's curious, I use organ needles, 9014 sharps. If anybody's curious as to what I use. So we're going to stick that new needle in and then tighten it up and get going again. And I'm going to stitch over that again just to be on the safe side to make sure my stitching stuck. See, I don't hide, I don't edit my stuff. You get to see all the things in real time when I'm doing crazy stuff or things go crazy on me. Luckily, nothing been too bad like before, so. All right, so we're going to sew that again one more time just to, and mainly I think it's because I'm sewing through 2 layers of cotton canvas and foam, and it just doesn't like it. It really doesn't like that part, does it? I think it bent a needle. It's just really thick there, apparently. I use Smets too. Apparently I have a really bad, but it did get reverse stitched before it decided to bend, but before I can sew anything else, I've got to change out needles. Gotta love, it is really thick there. So if you want to see how thick, that's a pretty thick layer sandwich, if you want to think, after I trimmed it. Gotta love when you break more than one needle. And on camera. All right, so this is why I keep a steady supply of these and I don't run out. I like Schmitz. I really like the vinyl needles for Schmitz. Those are really good. They're a little more heavy duty, but I didn't think I needed it, but apparently I did because I bent the sucker out of that one. But don't have that thickness to go through anymore. All right, so we'll just rethread this. Trim our thread away again. All right. Here we go. And we have threaded our needle. All right. So it is sewn. We have our boxed corner. So now what we're going to do is turn it right side out. I left a big enough hole that I can just go right in here. And flip it right side out through that hole. And said, we're almost done. So if you think about it, other than the cutting, this is about, even for the least experience, a 3 to 4 hour project. Cutting included to me, maybe closer to the 4-hour end. So not too bad a project. So one thing you do when you get everything turned right side out, make sure you poke out all your corners. You can double check your, and that would be why that, so I'm going to actually have to take that out. I'm going to actually sew a little higher up. Let's see. That was why it had a weird wrinkle. That's why we checked these. Probably should have done that before I trimmed it off, but not the first time. So we are going to take this seam out. All that fun stuff. And of course, things always go wrong on camera because you're on camera. So yeah, I cut a bunch of these out at one time, usually when I'm doing these, and then I'll kind of batch sew them. Right now, I'm sewing some more of my Stow and Go for some cross stitch shops. I'm doing some clear fronted ones as well as some regular ones, some fabric ones. So we are pulling out the seam. And of course, since I sewed this twice, I got more than one thing to pull out. will go. I have pulled it out, and we are going to make sure that this is nice and flat. Put it that way. All right. We're going to stitch this together again. Well, it seems to be laying a little flatter anyways. So that probably was part of the problem why I broke several needles. All right. So let's see if that looks better. Oh, much better. So if you can see, my seams are nice and pretty now. Seams match up, and it's nice and pretty and open. It was messed up, so we have fixed it. And this is why you don't sew up your opening hole before you double check all your corners. So we'll check that corner. And as you can see, the lining one turned out really well without issue. Now, place to make sure that the last time I did this a couple weeks ago, I forgot to, and I had to go open the hole to poke it out, was underneath your zipper tab. And so I am poking that open. Apparently have a random thread. So we are opening our zipper tab right here. Don't you love when a random thread gets caught in your seam and then does not want to come out? All right, so if you can see, I've poked out my zipper tab. So the blade nice and flat. All right, so we have poked open everything. Excuse me. And I dropped my seam ripper. All right, so now that's left is to pin our hole that we turned it through and sew that together using a scant 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And if anybody doesn't know what a scant is, that means very underneath the amount. So if it's a scant 1/8 of an inch, then it is actually a little bit less than an 1/8 of an inch. So I am pinning this, and I do pin this across because since it's kind of an awkward position, it likes to move. So I pin this a little more than I would most things. All right. Okay, we have our last pin. Just to show you, here is our thing. So I'm going to move it to the sewing machine. This is our last bit. And I will sew that together. Like I said, I use a very small seam, not even an 1/8 of an inch, probably closer to like somewhere between an 1/8 and a 1/16 of an inch. And I'll show you after I get it stitched. I said, you just kind of have to move things out of your way. I have sewn this to part of the other part of the lining. So you just have to make sure everything, like your flap and everything's out of your way. So you don't sew through parts you don't want it sewn to. I actually left myself a bigger turning hole than I do a lot of the time. And that was a lot easier to turn. I wasn't struggling quite as much. So, not saying leave out a huge hole, but it has helped to have a slightly larger hole to turn through and get your hand in, like when you're pushing out your corners and stuff like that. So I'm trimming my threads. And we are done. So I will pull everything out. Our curves. That's why I say always make sure you check your curves before you get to the where you're sewing it together. The lining to lining, the exterior to exterior. And so I pull my zipper tape up good, clear those curves, and I push my lining down into the bag. And just to show you, here is our completed one. And just to show you, it zips just as well. Now that I have both done without top stitching, you can, like I said, you can top stitch. That is a personal preference. I just don't. So there we go. It was zipping fine. It just wasn't laying flat. So and then we zip and unzip without issue. And the more you zip and unzip it, it moves better. So if you see, it is completely done. And we have our D-ring connector, and we have the wristlet we did at the beginning. And we have a completed Switch 2 Gamers Night Out wallet. And just so you can see the difference in the size, this is a regular OLED. The Pac-Man is. That's how much bigger it is. That's why the regular will fit in the new Switch 2 case, but not the vice versa. So it is a lot bigger. So just to show you. But it does hold the Switch 2. So we are complete. So I have my completed. If I actually pull it right. And we have our zipper pocket. And we have our card slots for our money, our cards, and just to show you that these do fit regular cards, because credit cards are actually smaller than business cards. This fits a business card there and a business card on the other side with no issues. So we are complete. And here is our completed Gamers Night Out. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Gotta love the Squirrel Squad. And I will see y'all probably in 2 weeks. I may do a little video next Wednesday. We'll see. But I will see y'all soon.